The world population is projected to reach almost 10 billion by the year 2050, which is an increase of more than 25% from the current population, which is around 8 billion. It's 7.8 billion. It is critical that we get smart about the relationship between population and the planet to make the best policy choices and avoid the pitfalls of the past. So I'm here for UNFPA. We're the United Nations Population Fund that puts women and girls at the center with a focus on upholding sexual and reproductive health and rights for all. Over time, the world realized that you can't dictate population size to people. It's the woman's choice. And it's clear that given a choice, women know exactly what they want. They want the number of children that they can afford and nurture. So, how to give power to solutions? For me, one way is by supporting women's own power, their power to control their fertility. When a woman has the power to make that choice, she's more likely to have power in other spheres of her life as well. We've studied this, and she gains not only in terms of personal autonomy, but also through advances in health and education, in income, and in safety. So she thrives, and so too does her family. That's why I think UNFPA has stood behind choice that can change the world. Right now, there are around 218 million women who want to avoid pregnancy, but they lack access to modern contraception. UNFPA is the largest provider of donated contraceptives to low and middle income countries. And we try to put that power to choose in the hands of millions of women and couples. So, uh, the power to make solutions and to make powerful solutions can be put into a woman's hands, and we have power too. Data and evidence shows this. Humans created a lot of these problems, and I do believe that humans can solve them, and not just women, but of course, everyone. So, Stephen, turning to you because your work is so fascinating and you've engaged with solutions throughout your vast realms of expertise and experience. And would love to know more about your thoughts on this issue of giving power to solutions.
Well, first, I couldn't agree with you more about uh, having women have freedom to choose what to do with their own bodies and how to, if they're going to raise families, what size family and what could be the most nurturing. But looking on a broader scale, this is intimately linked with many of the other things that we face in society. And when you think of the major challenges, I think of food. How are we going to have the ability to grow the food for this rapidly increasing population? And with food, water, and clean water and access, and clean and health, and climate change, and the fact that as people want to rise out of poverty, they will naturally consume more energy, more people, more energy, higher productivity, all good things. But this is leading in a very bad direction if you take the totality of all these stresses. So, going back to what you just spoke about, you can't really talk about sustainability until the world population is stabilized. And indeed, we have something that we know already that in societies where there's rapidly increasing prosperity, increasing education among especially women, and having access to, so they can control their own bodies. What you find is that the world population in those sectors go down. And it cuts across all countries, across all religions, races, you name it. Wealthier people, more educated people have fewer children. This is looked upon with horror by some, including many economists, that say, well, I don't understand. If you have fewer people, if you don't have a growing population, then how are you going to use the more people in the younger age sectors, the productive workforce, to actually create more prosperity for the older people. And so in the United States, this is known as a Ponzi scheme. That means you have people, if you grow and you sell more shares of something, you don't have to actually figure out exactly what to do. And it's famous in the world of how these Ponzi schemes work. You take money from investors, and you grow the number of investors, and then even though you don't produce anything, you can take the money from the new investors, give it back to the old investors, and everything looks really rosy, but you haven't done anything. Except it's worse than that in this global consumption, in a world of 7.5 billion going to 10 billion, going to 11 billion. You have to design an economy based on no growth, and no growth or even shrinking growth. Uh, I deeply believe it's possible to have rising prosperity with a stable or even declining population. And so, but unless we get off this treadmill, where you can't have any real sustainability, the growing number of people use more resources.
Well, it's interesting to consider how the numbers of population have grown, and the question of the big number can sometimes mask the inequalities that are inherent within societies. And so I think the question of how you invest in the people you have, and how, again, the choice of a young person with an education, and you've already laid out the difference that education makes in terms of that trajectory, makes a huge difference. I mean, when I think of a girl at a fork in a road, if she is married as a child under the age of 18, her future is pretty much cooked, and it's a future that's going to be one of lack of economic possibility. So rather than unleashing her creativity and having her participate, not just in her family or in her economy, but really to fulfill her full potential, that cohort needs investment. And we have seen that in every country where economic possibility has increased, these types of investments have been part and parcel of women being able to participate equally in society. Part of that equality between women and men is their ability to be able to conduct themselves in the public commons. And so it's not a trivial matter when a woman understands perfectly well that she would like to limit her family size. But as a global community, have we been able to empower that? The investments in people also, I think, has shown up during this global pandemic, Steve, because this is a pandemic where we've seen the fault lines of what years of a poor health system will do, what years of structural inequality, racism, discrimination, and the type of gender based inequality that translates into institutional neglect. So it's not a coincidence that the poorest people, the most vulnerable people, the most isolated people have been hardest hit by this pandemic. And to recover from that, the food equation and the energy equation is going to be part of it, because a sustainable climate, again, the climate issues hit the poorest and the most vulnerable first. So I think COVID will force us to respond in new ways. And for UNFPA, digital technology has been really, really important to be able to highlight who these vulnerable people are. Where are they? Where are they located? Telemedicine is enabling our doctors in remote areas of Mongolia to be able to converse with that midwife, that nurse, with other health professionals.